Snow was falling heavily that night. Cars rushed past, their headlights cutting through the white storm. But on a lonely park bench, a young woman sat motionless, her arms wrapped around a tiny baby, her lips blue from the cold. People walked by, pretending not to see. Until one man, just one, stopped. And what he did next would change all of their lives forever. You're watching Timeless Voices, where stories of love, kindness, and humanity remind us that miracles still happen, sometimes, in the coldest nights of our lives. Ethan Clark was a man who had everything, or so it seemed. A successful architect, a luxury apartment overlooking the city, and a car that most people only dream of driving. Yet, behind his calm smile and expensive suit, Ethan carried something heavier than any winter storm: loneliness. 3 years ago, he'd lost his wife, Emily, in a tragic car accident. Since then, Christmas, once her favorite time, became his most painful season. That night, he was driving home from work, the snow coming down thicker every minute. The world outside looked beautiful but cold, so very cold. As he stopped at a red light near the city park, something caught his eye. On a snow-covered bench, under the dim glow of a street lamp, sat a woman. Her dress was thin and torn, her shoes soaked. In her trembling arms, a tiny baby, wrapped in a small blanket, its face barely visible. Ethan blinked, thinking maybe he imagined it. But no, she was real. And she looked half frozen. The light turned green. Cars behind him honked impatiently. He gripped the steering wheel. His rational mind whispered, "Just go home. It's not your business." But his heart, the part Emily had always loved, wouldn't let him. He pulled his car over to the side, opened the door, and stepped into the freezing wind. "Hey, are you okay?" he asked softly. The woman looked up, startled. Her lips were pale, her eyes wide. Please, don't call the police," she whispered. "I'm not doing anything wrong. I just needed somewhere warm for the baby." Ethan's chest tightened. "I'm not calling anyone," he said quickly. "You look freezing." Here, he removed his scarf, a thick, woolen one Emily had knitted for him years ago, and gently wrapped it around the baby. The woman stared at him, tears forming instantly. "You shouldn't. It's snowing. You'll get cold." Ethan smiled softly. "Don't worry about me." He looked at the baby, then back at her. "When's the last time you ate?" She hesitated. "Yesterday morning, maybe. I lost count." Her voice cracked. "They kicked me out of the shelter because it's full. I thought, maybe if I just keep walking, someone would help." Ethan swallowed hard. He couldn't leave her like this. "Come with me," he said gently. Her eyes widened. "What? No, I can't. You don't even know me." He smiled faintly. "Maybe that's exactly why I should help you." He opened the car door, and after a few seconds of hesitation, she stepped in, clutching her baby close. Inside the warm car, her shaking hands slowly steadied. Ethan turned on the heat and drove toward the nearest diner. As they drove through the glowing streets, she finally whispered, "My name's Lila." He nodded. "Ethan." The baby stirred slightly in her arms. "What's his name?" he asked. "Oliver," she replied, smiling faintly. "He's 3 months old." Inside the diner, warmth and the smell of coffee filled the air. Ethan ordered soup, sandwiches, and milk. When the food arrived, Lila hesitated, her pride wrestling with her hunger. Ethan quietly pushed the plate closer. "Please, eat." For him. Tears slid down her cheeks as she finally began to eat. For a while, they sat in silence, just the sound of snow outside and the baby's soft breathing between them. After they finished, Ethan asked, "Where's Oliver's father?" Lila's eyes dropped to her hands. "He left when he found out I was pregnant. I tried to manage on my own, but when I lost my job, everything just collapsed. I've been sleeping in train stations, bus stops, anywhere that's dry." Her voice broke. "Sometimes I wish I could just disappear, but then Oliver smiles, and I keep going." Ethan looked at her, truly looked. He saw not a beggar, not a burden, but a mother fighting for her child. He saw Emily, the same fierce kindness in her eyes. When the snow slowed, Ethan spoke carefully. "Listen, I have a spare room in my apartment. It's warm, safe, and you both can stay there until you figure things out. Lila's fork froze midair. No, no, I couldn't. That's too much, Ethan said gently. Lila, it's just a roof. I don't expect anything in return. She shook her head, still unsure. Why would you do this for a stranger? Ethan smiled faintly. Because once, someone did it for me. And it saved my life. Her eyes softened. She nodded slowly. Okay. Just for a few days. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the windows of Ethan's apartment. For the first time in months, it felt alive again. Lila was in the kitchen, awkwardly trying to make coffee. Oliver was on the couch, kicking his tiny feet, wrapped in a warm blanket Ethan had found in the closet. Ethan stood in the doorway, watching. It had been years since he'd heard laughter in that space. Over the next few days, something began to change. Lila cleaned, cooked, and took care of Oliver. Ethan, in turn, helped her search for work online. At night, they talked about life, loss, and starting over. One evening, as snow fell outside again, Ethan shared a story he'd never told anyone. After Emily died, I stopped believing in good things, he said quietly. I thought kindness only existed in stories. But seeing you fight for your son, it reminded me that maybe the world still has light. Lila's eyes glistened. You gave me that light, Ethan. You and this place, it's the first time I've felt safe in months. Days turned into weeks. One afternoon, Lila got a call. It was from a small bakery nearby. They needed someone part-time. Ethan drove her there the next morning, cheering her on like a proud brother. As weeks passed, she started earning again. Slowly, her confidence returned. She bought warm clothes, baby supplies, and began saving money. Oliver, always smiling, became the joy of Ethan's evenings. He'd hold the baby while Lila prepared dinner, laughing at how the little one tried to grab his tie. But one day, Ethan returned home to find a note on the kitchen table. Ethan, I can never thank you enough for everything you've done. You saved my life, and Oliver's too. But I can't keep taking your kindness forever. I found a small room near the bakery. It's not much, but it's mine. Please don't worry about us. You've already done more than anyone ever has. With love and gratitude, Lila. Ethan stood still, the paper trembling in his hands. For a moment, the apartment felt cold again. He walked into the living room. The baby blanket was gone. The tiny laugh that had filled the nights, gone too. He sat down, staring at the empty couch, realizing that in helping them find home, he had lost a piece of his own. Days passed. Ethan went to work, but everything felt quieter. The laughter, the warmth, all echoes now. Until one evening, a knock on the door broke the silence. When he opened it, Lila stood there, holding a small box, smiling shyly. Oliver giggled in her arms, bundled in the same red scarf. I couldn't stay away without saying thank you properly, she said softly. She handed him the box. Inside was a framed photo of the three of them, taken by a kind customer at the bakery. Beneath it, a small note read, "Some people come into your life as blessings. Others come as lessons. You were both." Ethan's throat tightened. You didn't have to. I wanted to, Lila interrupted gently. Because of you, Oliver will grow up believing in kindness. And I'll never forget that you saw me when the whole world looked away. Tears welled in Ethan's eyes. You remind me so much of Emily. She used to say the same thing, that kindness can thaw even the coldest heart. Lila smiled softly. Then maybe she sent you to me. For a moment, silence filled the air, gentle, comforting. Then Oliver reached out from her arms, his tiny hand brushing Ethan's cheek. And for the first time in years, Ethan smiled, a real, unguarded smile. Months later, the park bench where he'd first seen her stood under the same street lamp. But now, instead of a lonely figure shivering in the snow, there were three people sitting together, laughing. Lila, now working full-time at the bakery, had saved enough to rent a small apartment nearby. Ethan often visited after work, bringing groceries and toys for Oliver. What began as a simple act of compassion had turned into something deeper, family, reborn from kindness. One snowy evening, Ethan placed a new scarf, bright red, around Oliver's tiny shoulders. "You know, little man, this color looks good on you," he said. Lila chuckled. "You'll spoil him." Ethan smiled. "Maybe. But after everything, I think he deserves a little spoiling." They laughed, the city lights reflecting in their eyes, the cold forgotten. That night, Ethan looked up at the sky, snowflakes drifting softly like feathers. He whispered, "Thank you, Emily, for reminding me how to live again." And somewhere in that silence, it felt like the universe smiled back. Kindness doesn't always need grand gestures. Sometimes, it's a warm scarf on a cold night, a stranger's hand when you're falling apart, or a single moment when someone decides to stop and care. Because the smallest act of love can rewrite someone's entire story. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Timeless Voices for more emotional and inspiring stories like this. Your one click helps us keep spreading kindness, one story at a time.